HICGI News Agency is still here in Baku, Azerbaijan at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP29 happening. And we're joined by another global senior climate activist. Well, can you introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, I'm called Musinguzi Laban Joshua, and I'm a regional director with GROW Foundation. GROW meaning GRO Foundation, that is Greenhouse Gas Reforestation Offsets.
And which country is that?
Oh yeah, it's in Uganda. It's in Uganda, and I'm not a climate activist, but I am an activist for social and environmental sustainability. So we are a social impact organization that alleviates poverty at grassroots levels through unlocking climate finance. And how we unlock climate finance is that we create and sell carbon certificates.
Carbon certificates?
Yes, and what comes out from the sale of carbon certificates is then reinvested into the communities through 4 initiatives, that is water, food, education, and job security.
To our viewers around the world who do not understand carbon certificates and carbon language, could you try to break down to what it means for them?
Yeah, so as we all understand that there is now global emissions of carbon, or greenhouse gas emissions, have really taken up to most of the global discussions, and we know that we have no other planet. So a carbon certificate, simply, in simple language, is what attracts a ton of carbon. So whenever you see 1 certificate of carbon, it means that that is 1 ton of carbon. So 1 certificate is equivalent to 1 ton of carbon.
I'm trying to say that people who are now into afforestation in Uganda are consulting you so that they can be in position to get these certificates and be able to get the credits.
Yeah, so we have been in very strong relationships and discussions with very key stakeholders and partners in Uganda. We have signed an MOU with the Inter-Religious Council of Uganda. We have serious level discussions with cultural institutions, including Busoga, Bugisu, Toro, and Buganda, because this is when we understand that if you look at the land aspect and planting or growing trees, for us now it is different from, we don't say planting trees, we are saying growing trees. So it is different to understand who owns the land, and this is government, culture, and religious institutions.
What is the difference between growing and planting trees?
Every day we have been planting trees. You plant, you forget about it. Growing means you come check on it, you monitor, you evaluate it. You know if the tree has managed to successfully grow after 3 years, then that is when we can know that now you're into tree growing.
So it becomes like a baby who has to be taken care of, nurtured, and then not just abandoning.
The tree is a living thing. I want to do an exercise with you. I want you to breathe in and breathe out. So right now what you've just done is what the tree does, but in the opposite direction. So you breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. But the tree breathes in carbon dioxide and gives you oxygen. So it's a living thing.
Uganda, where you're coming from, had a forest cover of about 30%. I think in the last 30 years. At the rate which the trees are currently now being degraded, there is, of course, a guarantee that we will have no forests again in the next 20 years. How are you assisting a country like Uganda?
Yeah, so like I earlier explained, that we're working through very key structures. We know that at the end of the day, we have seen that under government, there are central forest reserves. There are also other avenues like water resources that are there, and they have designated a specific distance through which you must protect the water catchment areas. So we are trying to make sure that we can either conserve and also do reforestation on the ones that have been having deforestation. But this is something, of course, that we are looking at in the next 10 to 15 years. It's not something we can do within 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, because of the nature of discussion and human population also coming up. Right now, Uganda completed this census recently. We saw the results. It means that numbers are going to even keep on doubling, probably even tripling. So we need to be careful as we are designating zones that are central forest reserves, that are community zones, that are also zones for food security purposes. As long as we can know that these are the demarcated zones, then we can now begin the discussion of carbon certificates.
What leaders are gathering here at COP29, and there are mixed reactions, especially as to whether the ambitions and various arguments they're signing are realistic enough to protect the environment. What brings you at COP29 as an individual? Do you have hope in COP29?
So that's a very, very interesting discussion you've brought today. Even when we were in the negotiation rooms today, one of the negotiation rooms in the finance discussions, we saw that Africa took its position and said that they have not understood the paper that was brought onto the table. So they asked for leave. They asked that the chairperson could postpone the meeting, and these documents are sent in earlier, and then contributions are given. So what brings us to COP as an organization that is globally recognized and regionally recognized and nationally working is that we want to just come here on these global stages, show the people on the global stages that we are actually doing something in Africa, in Uganda, and in the region to be particular, is that already now we are already planting trees with communities. First of all, I need you to understand that even if we don't do anything in Uganda or in East African region, we are still we have not really depleted our environment like what people say. So even if we choose to sleep every day, we can still seek to survive. But the issue is, whenever there is globalization, whenever there is industrialization that comes, we are seeing very special projects coming up that we're working in partnership with very many other key under a framework that is very new, by the way. It's called the Private-Public Community Partnership, where we're seeing special economic zones, industrial zones, like the green zones. This is something we're working with government of Uganda and UNIDO. So there is an interministerial discussion going on there. And you find that now is the time to prepare our land, our soil, for what comes next. If we have other biggest polluters who did not prepare their land earlier, because the moment you don't prepare for industrialization, which normally comes in and affects, has the biggest effects on climate change, then it means that we shall go into the same discussion that probably some countries were in 30, 40 years ago. So it is important for us to now go back home and then trickle down the message that has been brought today, because we are seeing the future, we are planning for the future, and then we do not have to go through, let's say, a scenario whereby we have depleted everything just for the sake of humanity, or for the sake of industrialization, or for the sake of, we're even seeing that the technology that is being developed today should be able to be sustainable. That's what you call sustainability now, the component of sustainability. That's the difference that we are having as an organization. We come into the sectors like finance, agriculture, oil and gas, then also the defense sector. That is, of course, those sectors I've told you have the biggest emissions. If you look at the financial sector, right now in Uganda we have the framework that has come up with the Uganda Bankers Association and the central bank. We have seen that there's an ESG framework where they are compelling banks, I think starting from next year by June, every commercial institution, commercial bank that is regulated by the central bank must report on the ESG standards and sustainability standards. Then now you're seeing it happening in agriculture. We have over 20% of the carbon emissions coming from agriculture. From the whole value chain, you can see what happens. There are emissions everywhere. If you come in the oil and gas sector, which is growing in Uganda, what is the sustainability plan there that makes sure that at least we can make sure that everything is comfortable? Look at the defense sector. The defense sector is also the same thing that is happening. So these are all things we're tackling for sustainability purposes.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has demanded $40 billion away from what has been corrected, and by 2025, if we are to pursue the agenda of saving the planet, where is this money going to be absorbed? Would you be feeling that money?
So I want you to understand that 1.5 global investments come to Africa, and we hope that changes, because with the climate funding we should be able to have more than that coming in as investments. If the element changes from grant, it changes from grant, changes from yeah. So if 1.5% of the global investments come to Africa, this has been the mentality. So Africa is now changing the mindset from waiting for grant, because there's no help coming, we all know that. So now we want to understand the position you are sitting on the table. How are the investments coming, and the social impact? Is it a line of credit? Is it for capacity building? If all these lines are clear and are made very, very vivid, I believe our leaders, through very many other forums, they will be able to discuss what happens and what comes next. But as long as we don't have that, then I don't think Africa will have a seat on the table to attract financing.
And what message after these 14 days are you going to go back with? And what are going to be expectations?
we're going to be geared up as we have always been. We are going to contribute globally towards making sure that we have a safe planet, an environment that is very, very clean. We have seen renewable energy policies coming up. We are seeing that in Uganda we're doing the carbon credit guidelines. Already they are on with the discussions with the Ministry of Water and Environment, who have a whole delegation here. We are seeing sensible issues coming up. So we want to see post-COP discussions. What happens that Uganda or Africa can prepare themselves in advance to have global discussions. From now, we continue having the post-COP engagements. So that by the time we go to COP next year in Brazil, we are in position to discuss what has informed with data and with evidence.
The United States government, as we finalize a new leader, Donald Trump does not believe in climate reports. He calls them that they're nothing. So what is your take about the major financer, which should be on the issue of environment?
Well, I would say yes and no. I would say yes and no. On the perspective of a businessman, I would understand his position. On the perspective of a social impact, I would still also understand his position, that it is a yes and no answer. So if we all try, you see, it's a 6 and 9 situation. It's a 6 on President Donald Trump's position. It's a 9 on the other side of the position. So can we go on the side of the 9 and see what is there, and then go on the side of the 6 and also understand what is there? We all know that people come here and make commitments.
Oh yeah.
But who has followed up on who has been able to honor?
Make our leaders accountable.
Yes. So that's another situation where probably him as a businessman would not want to be in a room where people are not honoring their positions. So if I can manage to have 1 or 2 or 3 partners and they can honor their commitments, I'm better off going with about 50 who don't honor their commitments. So it is like I said, it's a catch-22 on on the position that probably most people like Donald Trump have, President Donald Trump. So it's the 6 and 9. It's even the young people are saying the same thing. They're saying we do not have space to come in and even have these discussions. But we're not fighting for the space anyway. We are fighting for what social impact is about. How many jobs have been created? How is food security? How is the water security? Is it education and skilling? And then we are good to go. It means that for the next 15 years, what has been the report? Sustainability is the answer.
Any closing remarks, Mr. Laban Musinguzi, as we wind this COP29 discussion?
Yeah, we really need to understand that it's everyone's commitment. We have no other planet. We do not have a substitute in a planet. We have only one. I've seen people who have gone to try out in Mars. I've heard people are going to try out to look for another way of living. But this is the only planet Earth that we have. So if we should be able to live sustainably in the planet, let's think about biodiversity. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure speaking to you, Laban Musinguzi, here in Azerbaijan, where COP29 is happening. When you go back, greetings to the people out there.
Absolutely.
My name is Musinguzi, understanding on behalf of HRCG IS Agency, Baku, Azerbaijan, COP29.